In this CS Time Clock training session, we'll be covering some of the important points from the previous session. To log into the clock, you put the clock's IP address in the address bar of your browser. If you have forgotten what that is or you haven't saved it, go to the clock, press the menu button followed by 2 and then 2 again, and after the screen refreshes a couple of times with system information, it'll show you the IP address of the clock. You can put that in the address bar of your browser. This screen will come up. The default user is 9970 and the default password is the word password in lowercase. Press login and this screen will appear. This is the summary of all of the employees in the system. We've already worked in this screen before to add all the employees. They can be deleted from here. You can edit the employees, change the details using this icon. When you set up your employees, you'll be working mainly with two branches of the menu: the browse menu at the top of the screen and the processing menu further down in the screen. The browse menu is where you view employees. That's where we currently are. This is where you add employees, allocate them cards or PIN numbers, and this is where you can view the clockings, the cards that are allocated to them, their daily hours, payroll hours, leave records, and payroll exports. When adding employees, you add it through the employees screen and you add schedules down through the employee schedules under the processing menu. Once you've added or copied across an employee schedule to a new employee and they've begun clocking, you can view them along with the other employees in the payroll hours section, which is the most common place to look at the summary of employee hours. And to see that, you've simply put in the date range of your payroll. In this case, we're going to use that date range for 1 week. Press apply. The summary of hours for all employees will be seen in this screen. Generally speaking, most payroll people use this as their guide as to whether the hours look right for employees, and if they don't look right, they can go and drill down further using the daily hours for each employee. Best way to do that is to go back to the employee screen and pick the employee hours for that employee. Make sure the date range is correct. And in there you can see the actual clocking times that have been rounded by the system and the time in the various different payroll categories. So if you think there's something that needs to be worked on there, like for argument's sake, you can see that Jim worked on Sunday, but he didn't clock out. You can find out from Jim what happened there and do an override. And one's already been done here. You can see it says 6 hours. And that is an O for an override in this instance because it's been overridden in the edit section here. Sunday, which had no calculated hours because it didn't have an outclocking, has been overridden with 6 hours. Some of the things that can influence unexpected hours in the payroll hours screen are people forgetting to clock, so they won't have clockings for one of their days for argument's sake, so they won't have an in-clocking or an out-clocking for the day, and that can generally be seen because their normal hours are less than you would expect for a full week. So if I saw this one for argument's sake, Jim, with less than 40 hours, because I know he's supposed to work 40 hours. If I saw 32 hours, then what I might expect was something was missing. There would be some leave missing, or there would be a missing clocking. And to find that out, the best way again is to go back to the employee screen and look at Jim's individual hours and see for each day whether he's got a clocking and whether it makes sense in the overall scheme of things. In previous training, we also covered under the setup menu, backing up the system. Periodically, for example, after all the employees have first been added to the system and then at the end of each payroll period, it's recommended that you do a backup. Under the setup menu, press backup, press start backup, and then the system will download a backup file to the normal location where your downloads go from the internet. So let's do a quick recap on what we've covered so far again. Add the employees using the insert button. Under the processing menu, add an employee schedule for them or copy an employee schedule from one person to another. And you do that either by selecting the schedule of one employee and copying it to another using the drop-down list and then pressing the copy button, or inserting a new schedule by pressing the insert button, and you'll be able to open a new schedule for setting up in the system for whatever employee you select. Once you've done that, you can have your employees clock in and clock out on a regular basis, and you can monitor their clockings in the browse menu under the clocking screen to see individual clockings. You can see the calculation of daily hours in the date range you select for all employees if you like. You can sort that in alphabetical order or date or employee number. Generally speaking, employee number is the way to do it. That way it groups employee clockings together. At the end of a payroll period, you can see all of the payroll hours by employee summarized. And if you want to drill down further, you just simply go back under the Browse menu to Employees and select their individual hours from the menu. You can override hours that you believe are incorrect by pressing the Edit button at the end of the line, so you can go and change those calculated hours if you choose. If something isn't correct about that, you can override it. And some people manage that per employee, so they would effectively look at a timesheet for each employee by going to the Browse Employee menu and then going down to the hours icon for that individual employee, checking that one by one through the employees. When that's all complete for each employee, down to payroll hours. And you can send that to an Excel spreadsheet if you like, or, and we'll cover this in a later session, you can export it to payroll hours. And that's a summary of what we've covered so far in the CS Time Clock web training.